Okay, 8th grade, it is Tuesday, May 19th. We are looking at our reading packet today, not our writing packet. So today we're starting on another one of those assessments, which is just covering a lot of the stuff that we've already covered throughout the packet. So this part is really, really long, and they have you doing it in one day. I'm going to have you do it in two separate days. So today we're going to do pages 33 through 36, and then we'll finish off the last part of the assessment on Thursday. Just because I think this is too much for you guys to do in one day. So we're going to read the story and then answer the questions that follow. Well, we've already done some assessments together. With this, so you guys know that I'm just going to help explain the questions to you, but I'm not going to answer the questions because this is the assessment, so you guys need to answer the questions on your own, but I will explain the questions in more depth. So we're going to read this story together. It's called Ted's Champion, and then we're going to answer the questions. You guys are going to answer them on your own, but I'll explain the questions to you. So it's called, again, Ted's Champion. It says, "There just isn't room for an animal that can't pull its own weight," Pops declared, briskly rubbing down the roan mare, a gentle horse that was popular with the local children. "That gray fellow won't take commands from kids, so what's the use of feeding him when nobody can ride him?" The little mare nodded her head, snorting gently, her tail flicking at the flies. "He's a good horse, Ollie is," Ted retorted. "So what if the little kids can't manage him? He's a good one," he repeated, leaning over the stall and rubbing Ollie's whiskered muzzle. "Anyway, I'll pay his keep if you won't." Ollie nickered softly, pushing his muzzle against his favorite human being's palm. He smelled of oats and apples, and in his enormous eyes was a glint that Ted had to admit was a trifle mischievous. Ollie had sent more than one child scrambling from the paddocks. "Well, that would be reasonable if you had the cash, son," Pops answered, his expression hovering somewhere between a smile and a frown. "But you're in school most of the year, and a horse doesn't eat only in the summertime. A horse is a full-time proposition, as you, of all people, ought to comprehend." At dinner, the debate dragged on, Mom shaking her head while Pops and Ted argued at full volume. When she had heard enough, Mom interrupted. "Teddy, I know you love the horse, and Bob, I realize you can't afford his upkeep, so what I suggest, Teddy, is that you do some thinking and figure out what you can do about the situation. You might do some chores for the neighbors. Meanwhile, come help me carry this heavy platter over to the sink, and I'll heat up the pie." This pronouncement evidently closed the discussion, at least for the moment. Over the next few weeks, Ted visited every local store in search of work. He was willing to do anything to help out, but no one had any work to offer him. He visited a few neighbors and asked if he could do some yard work and chores for them. He inquired about washing cars and walking dogs, but by the end of the month, Ted had no job offers or any way to earn extra money. He was still determined not to give up. Early Saturday morning, just after dawn, Ted saddled Ollie and eased him out of the paddocks and then across the fields. He cantered for a mile, enjoying the stallion's confident gait, until they came up beside the Saunders orchard. From their abundant acres rose a sweet aroma of ripening apples. As a small child, Ted had been delighted when Mrs. Saunders let him pick a few apples and carry them home in his cap. As if summoned by Ted's memories, Mrs. Saunders appeared in her orchard, the sun glinting off her braid of pale hair. With long strides, the tall woman made her way through the trees until she was only a few yards from the boy and the horse. Now that her husband had passed away, she spent a lot more time in the orchard, trying to maintain and collect all of the apples to sell at the farmer's market in town. "Good morning," she said, coming closer to Ollie and taking his bridle in her hand. "You're up early. Teddy, isn't it?" Her eyes were no longer as sharp as they'd been when Teddy was only up to her knee, but as she looked over, she recognized him without a doubt. "How are things going at the stable?" she inquired. "Pretty well," Ted replied. "It seems like people will always pay for riding lessons, even if times aren't so great. Your father runs a good stable, that's why they keep coming. Are you giving riding lessons too? Seems like you'd be old and experienced enough." "On Saturday afternoons and whenever Pops can't keep up," Ted acknowledged. Without knowing it, he was frowning, one hand absently stroking Ollie's coarse mane. "You're on a fine horse there," Mrs. Saunders observed, drawing a rosy apple from a low-hanging branch and offering it to Ollie, who pulled back his lips and gently took the treat. He might not be mine much longer, Ted suddenly blurted out, but I won't give him up. No, I won't do it. What's all this about? The woman asked, leading Ollie by the bridle across the grassy path up to the farmhouse. His rider chewed on his lower lip, wondering how much to confide to his old acquaintance. So Ted told her the whole story, how he'd offered to maintain his horse, his father's opposition, and the discouraging news that no one in the immediate vicinity seemed to require an extra hand at chores. Mrs. Saunders brought Ollie to the paddocks, then Ted into the kitchen, where the clock read just 7 a.m. She made them glasses of iced tea and set out a plate of biscuits, then dried her hands on a dish towel before taking a seat beside Ted. She thought about how tired she was from doing all the work in the orchard herself, then an idea crossed her mind, and she smiled at Ted. You're an early riser, Mrs. Saunders commented, and you seem like a very able boy. Suppose I boarded Ollie here. I only have 2 horses just now, one belonging to my granddaughter Caitlin, and it wouldn't stretch our budget too much to feed one boarder more. And in return, you could come early mornings, 3 times a week, say, and help out in the orchard. That seems like an advantageous bargain for the both of us, wouldn't you agree? As Ted galloped across the fields, he couldn't stop grinning. If Mrs. Saunders wanted to harvest every bushel of apples her orchard produced, he wouldn't mind one bit. It was a great bargain, and Ted was proud of himself that he hadn't given up. Ollie ran with the speed and strength of a champion, Ted's champion, and the boy knew he would never, ever let him go. So now let's take a look at the questions, which begin on page 35. Again, we're only doing questions on page 35 and 36 today. Then we'll start off on 37 on Thursday. So this first question says, which sentence from the story best supports the idea that Ollie is not useful to Pops? So Ollie is the name of the horse. Ted is the name of the boy. So we're looking, Ollie is the horse, Pops wants to get rid of the horse, right? So which one of these statements best supports the idea that Ollie isn't useful to Pops? So it says, in his enormous eyes was a glint that Ted had to admit was a trifle mischievous. Ollie had sent one more child scrambling from the paddocks. B says, well, that would be reasonable if you had the cash, son, Pops answered, his expression hovering somewhere between a smile and a frown. C says, but you're in school most of the year, and a horse can't only eat in the summertime. A horse is a full-time proposition. And then Ted says he might not be mine much longer. Well, we can immediately eliminate D, right? Because him being not being Ted's much longer doesn't say anything about why he's not useful to the dad. So let's think about like the dad's job. What does the dad do? He runs a stable where he gives people riding lessons, right? The paddocks is where they give the riding lessons at. So let's just keep that in mind. So Ted is Ollie the horse, he like bucks the kids off, like he's not very good for teaching kids how to ride. So that's why the dad says they need to get rid of them. So which one of these statements says something about the reason why Pops has to get rid of Ollie? Let's look at number 2. Which of Mom's actions in paragraph 4 best shows that she is a wise judge? So we went back to paragraph 4. We know it's going to be paragraph 4 because it has the number next to it. It says, at dinner, the debate dragged on, Mom shaking her head while Pops and Ted argued at full volume. When she had heard enough, Mom interrupted. Teddy, I know you love the horse, and Bob, I realize you can't afford his upkeep. So what I suggest, Teddy, is that you do some thinking and figure out what you can do about the situation. You might do some chores for the neighbors. Meanwhile, come help me carry this heavy platter over to the sink, and I'll heat up the pie. This pronouncement evidently closed the discussion, at least for the moment. So, based on paragraph 4, is she a wise judge because A, she summarizes both sides of the argument, B, she interrupts the argument to make a point, C, she shakes her head while Pops and Ted argue, or D, she suggests a way for Ted to earn extra money. So all of these happened in paragraph 4. A, B, C, and D happen in paragraph 4. But which one best shows why she's a good judge? And what it means when it says wise judge is that she's not biased, right? She's not showing a better opinion towards the dad or the son. So which one of those shows that she's a better person to like help them make a decision? So let's look at 3. It says, which sentence from the story best supports the idea that Ollie truly belongs with Ted? So saying that Ollie should always be Ted's horse, that they shouldn't get rid of Ollie. So it says, A, that gray fellow won't take commands from kids, so what's the use of feeding him when nobody can ride him? B, Ollie nickered softly, pushing his muzzle against his favorite human being's palm. C, he cantered him for a mile, enjoying the stallion's confident gait until they came up beside the Saunders orchard. Or D, you're on a fine horse there, Mrs. Saunders observed, drawing a rosy apple from a low-hanging branch and offering it to Ollie. So we're not talking here about Ollie being a good horse, but specifically why Ollie belongs with Ted, which is the boy that's riding him through the whole story. So let's move on to 36. It says, what might most likely motivates Mrs. Saunders to offer Teddy a job? So there might be more than one reason that Mrs. Saunders offered Teddy a job, but what it's saying is which is the best reason or the most likely reason that she offered Ted a job. So A, she decides that Ollie's a fine horse. B, she knows that Ted has a practical father. C, she remembers him visiting her orchard as a small child. Or D, she believes that Ted will work hard and help her out. So if we look at like A, she does talk about how Ollie's a good horse, right? But do you think she would offer Ted a job just because Ollie's a fine horse? No, because she probably would have offered him a job without the horse, but it would be based on something else, right? So we can immediately go ahead and eliminate A, because even though part of the reason is that Ollie's a good horse and she wants to help Ted keep Ollie, that's not the most likely reason that she offered him a job. So you need to look at, again, the most likely reason. So this one is a 2-part question, number 5, which is the last question we're going to do for today, and then we'll do all of the writing questions tomorrow. So it says, or on Thursday, sorry. It says, which of the following best states an important theme about life's difficulties as described in Ted's Champion? So, theme, what are we looking for when we're looking at theme? We're looking for what we can get out of the story, right? What lesson can we learn from the story? So, the theme, they're already telling you what the theme is generally about. So it's about life's difficulties. So which one of these is the most relatable theme to the story? Is it that children should always respect their parents' wishes? Well, I think we can go ahead and immediately eliminate that one, right? Because Ted's dad says, oh, we just need to get rid of Ollie immediately, right? If he just always respected his parents' wishes, then he would have just gotten rid of Ollie. He wouldn't have been trying to do all this stuff where he gets a job so that he can keep the horse and all that kind of stuff. Persistence is the surest way to overcome any challenge. A horse that won't be ridden becomes a horse without a home. Or you should think twice about wanting what you cannot afford. So, persistence is going to mean like you keep on trying no matter what, even when it seems hopeless, you keep on going, right? So a horse that won't be ridden becomes a horse without a home. If the horse won't allow to be ridden, then just get rid of it. That's what C is saying. And then D says you should think twice about wanting what you cannot afford. If you can't afford it, then you should probably get rid of it, is what D is saying. So which one of these 3 is the best answer to what is the theme of Ted's Champion? Now, once you answer part A, you're going to select 3 pieces of evidence that support your answer for part A. So once you picked an answer up here, you would pick 3 pieces of evidence that support whatever answer you chose here. Okay? So the first one says, but you're in school most of the year and the horse doesn't eat only in summertime. So what I suggest, Teddy, is that you do some thinking and figure out what you can do about the situation. Over the next few weeks, Ted visited every local store in search of work. He inquired about washing cars, walking dogs. But by the end of the month, Ted had no job offers or any kind of way to earn extra money. As a small child, Ted had been delighted when Mrs. Saunders let him pick apples and carry them home in his cap. Mrs. Saunders brought Ollie to the paddocks, then led Ted into the kitchen, where the clock read just 7 a.m. And then lastly, if Mrs. Saunders wanted him to harvest every bushel of apples her orchard produced, he wouldn't mind one bit. So you need to pick 3 pieces of evidence that support whatever answer you choose for part A. Okay, so again, we're going to do 37 through, I believe it's like 40. We'll do 37 through 40 on Thursday because tomorrow will be in our writing packet. I didn't want to give you guys too much to do at once. So today, again, you are just doing 33 through 36. So let me know if you have any questions. Again, I can't give you the answers to these because it is an assessment, but I can help you with whatever you might need.